and the two sides come together. Joining us now, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Leader Hoyer, thank you very much for being with us. $600 extra people have been getting for months. That expires this week. We just saw the Republican plan, and for the time being, they want to cut that back to $200. Can you meet in the middle?
Well, we'll see, but it is typical of the Republican response to the American people, and they're saying you're on your own. Obviously, to have a draconian $400 cut immediately is going to make it very, very difficult for American families to meet their rent, to pay for food, to pay their living expenses. It is not acceptable that the 2.5 months after we passed the HEROES Act, the Republicans would still be dissembling, still not able to reach agreement, still not coming forward with sufficient assistance to meet this extraordinary pandemic and crisis that America and the American people are confronting. It mirrors, of course, the Trump's failure to respond in an effective way to this pandemic, a failure to apply the resources that are necessary to get us back to health and get us back to business and get us back to school. The incredible mismanagement of this pandemic and the incredible negligence of the United States Senate and the Republican Party to respond in a timely fashion is mirrored in this proposal. It is insufficient, it will let down the American people, and it will damage the economy.
One of the things that some Republicans say is that $600 serves as a disincentive to go back to work. It is more in some cases than they say that people were making at the beginning. So what do you say to that?
And I think that's an argument that has some validity to it, and we ought to deal with that, and there is a way to deal with that, but not this way, not cold turkey, not here you have it, now you don't. The American people were relying on that. We've got 30 million Americans who've lost their jobs, highest unemployment that we've had in decades. The Republican response is inadequate. And frankly, it's incomprehensible that the states and local governments and cities and tribal governments and territories that have been hemorrhaging revenue because of the pandemic are left out totally in the cold. They hire our firefighters, they hire our police, they hire our sanitation workers, they hire our teachers, and all they're going to be left with is an option to lay off people who are critically important to the American people in responding to this pandemic.
Let me just ask, though.
It's not adequate.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. It does seem like you might be willing to come off some from $600, not to $200, but you're not demanding $600 or bust?
Look, it's not $600 or bust. You don't. Speaker Pelosi said the other day, which I thought was a great line, we don't have red lines, we have values. And we're going into these negotiations with values. To say that it's 600 or nothing, no, that's not where we are.
Okay.
We're prepared to discuss this, but we're also not prepared, however, to let down the American people, to let down the states, the cities, the local governments who hire people who are meeting this pandemic's crisis, including health personnel. We're not willing to walk away from the American people, which we think is what this bill does. And in my opinion, this bill is a McConnell fig leaf. It is a pretense of response rather than a substantive response, lest they would have acted much more quickly if they really wanted to deal with this problem. But 2.5 months went by, nothing happened.
I want to ask you a matter of parochial interest. As a Maryland representative and Maryland resident, it has to do with baseball. The Miami Marlins now, with 14 players and coaches who have tested positive, scheduled to play this week in Baltimore as soon as Wednesday. Is it your opinion that it would be safe to host the Marlins at Camden Yards?
Look, I'll let the medical personnel decide that question. I'm not expert enough to do that. But clearly, you've got to be concerned. Major League Baseball has to be concerned. The players need to be concerned. You come back, and within just a few weeks of coming back, 14 people on one team are tested positive for coronavirus. That's a worry. But I'll leave that decision as to what needs to happen to the medical and scientific personnel.
It gets to the issue of how early, or the push to open maybe before an entity, a state, a city is ready. And I was struck yesterday by the President of the United States, yesterday, in the midst of growing case numbers and whatnot, saying this. Listen.
I really do believe a lot of the governors should be opening up states that they're not opening, and we'll see what happens with them.
Your reaction?
I think it's typical of President Trump's responses. A, shifting responsibility. B, evidencing no plan, no concept of how we can defeat this pandemic, no ability to lead this country. It is tragic that at a time of great crisis, we have a president who has no plan, who has no sense of what the right thing is to do, and is dividing America rather than bringing it together to confront this virus.
Now, you are up at the Capitol right now. I want to show our audience, I don't know that you can see it, a live picture right now of the Capitol, and that is, of course, the late Representative John Lewis. There we see it right now. This is a live picture. There were deeply moving services yesterday inside the Capitol, and I know this is a personal loss for you. This is someone who was a friend of yours for decades.
Yes.
And I don't know if I heard this correctly. Did you walk with him across the Edmund Pettus Bridge 15 times?
That's correct. Some of those times hand in hand with my friend, my beloved friend John Lewis. I've said the day after his death, I said there was a hole in the heart of America, a sense of great loss of a leader who brought to us a vision of love and togetherness and a beloved community, who brought every day of his life a positive attitude to make America better and have it live out its ideals of equality and justice and fairness to all. And we've experienced a great loss, and yes, you're correct. Yesterday's ceremony was short at John's request. Mm-hmm. He was a humble human being. He was a great presence, a great person, as I say, Christ-like in so many ways, but very humble, self-effacing, not necessarily wanting the attention on him, but on the vision that he had for a beloved community and a commitment to making America live out its ideals. We have sustained a great loss in America, a great loss in the Congress of the United States. He was called the conscience of the Congress. He was the conscience of the country. At 23, speaking to all of America about, in 1983, coming together, 63, excuse me, coming together and treating people not based upon the color of their skin, as Martin Luther King said, but on their character and on their conduct. John Lewis was a great, great, great American and a great human being. And I know he was deeply important to you personally and also to your family. A great story about meeting members of your family. Yes, I took my granddaughters and I took a great-granddaughter with me on the Faith and Politics, had a program, a pilgrimage to Montgomery, to Birmingham, and to Selma on an annual basis. And we went to Mississippi as well, and I traveled with John Lewis to South Africa and was in Nelson Mandela's jail cell on Robbins Island with John Lewis. What an extraordinary moment that was. Two extraordinary human beings, Nelson Mandela and John Lewis, leaders on behalf of the best that is within us. Leader Hoyer, we are deeply sorry for your loss, and we thank you so much for being with us this morning. But one thing I think we can all say is we are all better for having had John Lewis walk on this earth. So thank you. And the people in my church would say amen. I appreciate you being with us. I want to leave everyone